Hello, hello. My name is April Malone, and I'm with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Dylan with me. Dylan, you're going to have to help me with your last name.
Yes, we did not talk about that before the show. It's Ogline, so it's Dylan Ogline. I apologize.
Oh, God. I know. I had that moment where I'm like, I am going to butcher this. Thank you for telling me. And you are in Florida, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, I am in the Sunshine State in Orlando, right outside Orlando.
We have a 3-hour time difference, and so...
Yeah, it's early for you, isn't it? That's brutal.
It's good for me because I can get this interview done before my children wake up to get ready for their online school. And today's an intense day for them because they have to turn in all their paperwork.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to spend my whole day like scanning my kindergartners, like coloring sheets and things like that. It's fun times.
Hey, thanks for getting up so early and having me. So it's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. We don't know each other in person. We've just sat here chatting for 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of to getting to know each other a little bit, but I'll let you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about what you do, but we're going to talk more about work from home and the stigma and such, and then you'll tell us all about your business.
Gotcha. So Dylan Ogline's the name. I own a digital marketing agency called Ogline Digital. Work from home, have for, I'm 30, probably about 10 years or so. I also own an education company that I run under my personal name. Just my website's dylanogline.com. And with that, I teach people how to start and grow their own digital agency like the one that I have. That's the very short of what I do right now. So
are you an employee of one and you own the other, or are you running both of them?
I have been self-employed since I was 14. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've only ever had one job for a company that I did not own. So,
have you always worked from home, or did you ever do like your regular job?
So when like shortly after I turned 18, the company I was involved with, we got an office. Like that was just the dream. It was like, oh man, I'd love to have an office and everything. Before that, it was, working at my parents' home and whatnot. And so then got an office and probably did that for a year or two, give or take, and absolutely hated my life. I hated everything about working from an office. It was terrible.
Was it so much overhead? Like did you rent it?
Yeah, it was a rent. It was a very nice office by all means. This was back before, this was like 2010. So this was before like co-working spaces were like a common thing. Like
right.
Who did that? And so there was overhead, but it was the fact that like I had to sit through traffic. It was I had to be at work it wasn't like a required to, but I had to be at work at a certain time, and like but prior to that I didn't realize how much of a luxury it was where like if I'm doing something creative and like the juices just aren't flowing, I can get up and like go for a run or something. Whereas if you're in an office, like you just can't do that. So I'm very lucky that very quickly I learned how much I hated it. And I learned at a very young age how much I hated it. So,
and you were able to get out of that lease.
yeah. It was like a year lease or something like that. So, I think we finished the lease or whatever. But I hated it. Like it was the dream. It was the ultimate dream.
Yeah?
I was like, I have to.
How many people did you have in that office?
I think there was 4, so including myself. So,
and did the others hate it as much as you did?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So I'm really curious, what did you do when you were 14, your first business?
My very first business was selling cell phones on eBay. So this was prior to when...
You were 14.
I was 14, yeah. So this was when all like the smartphones of the day, they were made in like Europe. Like Europe was far ahead of us in terms of smartphone technology for a certain period of time. So... I got my first cell phone when I was like 13 or whatever, and I paid for it like mowing grass or whatever. And I don't know where I found it, but like I saw one on the internet, like one of these fancy cell phones, and I was like, I gotta have it. I don't know how I found it or how I ended up doing it, but I ended up signing up for this like wholesaler's website where you could purchase at cost, not at cost, but like wholesale priced cell phones.
Right.
And somehow, some way, they approved my application. I must have lied about my age. I don't remember.
Maybe they don't ask age because they weren't
feel like they
expecting
did, though.
14-year-olds.
I feel like they did. I don't remember. I don't
Or maybe your
remember.
parents had to sign off on it.
No, I know because like I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna start a cell phone business. So what it was is it was like say a $300 cell phone or whatever. Because we couldn't get them here in the United States, there was a markup on them, and I could get them for the European cost. So like I would buy a phone for like say $300 and sell it on eBay for like 400. That's the simple end
Ooh.
of it. Yeah. So I was making at the time I was making like 1,500, maybe $2,000 a month. I think I might have peaked at like 3 a couple times. But when you're like 14, 15, I was making it rain. I didn't know what to do with all the money.
Did your friends know you had that much money?
It only lasted for like maybe 6 months because it got shut down because my credit card processor found out my age. So that didn't last that long. But between then, what happened was I don't remember. I know it was 14 when I started it, and I dropped out of high school when I was 16. But what happened was so I started the business, and I convinced my parents to like let me skip every Friday. I don't even remember why I did that or how, but I would skip school every Friday and just work all day. So I did that, and then I eventually convinced them like, hey, I would love to do homeschooling so I can, I'm not wasting my time going to school. I'm still going to, get my education. But let me do homeschooling. I'll pay for it. And it ended up costing me like $1,500 to $2,000. And so they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure thing, Dylan. So I
like you paid for your own curriculum?
Yeah. At the time, this was like when this was the infancy of homeschooling.
Oh, no, I was there for the infancy of homeschooling, unless you're a lot older than me.
How old are you?
I'm 42, so I was doing
you're
homeschooling when... Yeah, I think my family started homeschooling us, like 1989.
I was born in 1989.
Yeah, so infancy, blah.
Well, I see, like now kids like you can just decide to do homeschool and education. Like some schools, like they give you like a Mac or an iPad to do the education. Back then,
it just depends on how you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had to pay the actual school. I had to buy the books and everything. So I convinced my parents to let me do that. And I never even opened a single book, never took a single test. And, it lasted like, a couple months. And then I was like, hey guys, can we just like ixnay this and I can just quit school? And I don't know why, but they let me. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's where it started.
I'm curious. Did you ever go back and do like a GED or anything like that?
When I was 17, I feel like I might've been 18. This was before, the Affordable Health Care Act. So I had to get my own health insurance. Mm-hmm. And it was through the SBA somehow, some way, like that's where I went to go get my policy, and they required you to have at least a college or high school equivalent. So I did go back.
SBA Small Business Association?
Small Business Administration. It's a government
administration.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have no idea why, but they required you to have at least a GED. So I went back and I got my GED.
Was that easy for you or hard?
I got like 99th percentile in math and science and everything. And then I'm terrible. I'm a terrible writer. So I think I got like 60th percentile on that. But I didn't study for it or anything. Like I wasn't.
It was enough to get you through.
Yeah, I wasn't a bad student. I was just, I was very rebellious.
And you were motivated in other
ventures. Yeah, very much so.
Wow. And then I'm just curious, did you ever go and do any studying beyond your GED?
I've signed up for one college class, not to get a degree or anything, just because I don't even remember what it was. It was just like, I would like to do this. And I do think that I would like to, I do feel like education overall is changing. The world of education is changing.
Right.
But I do think I would like to go and take some college classes. I have no desire to get a degree, but I'm always trying to learn new things and get educated. So you can't see behind me.
Well, if you're not interested even in the What was
I
that?
said, you can't see behind me, but I got like a lot of books I read all the time.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that like during my or for my generation, we were always said, told you got to get like your 4-year degree to get a good job.
hmm
But I feel like there's definitely a trend now, people saying not necessarily, experience has a lot of weight
hmm
and obviously you've been successful in many things without that degree. You can audit a lot of classes. I think you can even access like MIT's classes
yeah.
online for free.
hmm
Like, I mean, there's a lot. If you're not looking for that grade or that degree, you could learn a ton.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I've signed up for like I think Harvard classes. Like
Yeah.
you can go and like get them for free. For me, I actually do I would like to just the challenge of actually
Uh-huh.
taking a class and just to see if it's different than just me going through the curriculum, you know. But
Right.
but again, I have no desire to get a degree or have fancy titles behind my name.
And you're not feeling that you need one.
Oh, absolutely not. No. I mentioned that I think education overall was changing. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think there's a lot of value to it, but the world is changing. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
absolutely.
Let's talk about how you ended up working from home. So you never really worked a nine to five job for anyone else.
hmm
You've always been this small business owner or
Self-employed. Yeah.
entrepreneur. Talk about it. Let's hear.
Uh, well, I mean, for me, it was the only job I ever had. It was working for somebody else. So I guess we'd start here. Is my girlfriend when I was like 14 or so? Her dad owned like the local racetrack,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked the cotton candy stand. And what I realized very quickly was I consider myself like an unemployable entrepreneur. Like I can't. I come in and somebody tells me, okay, do step 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, well, actually, it's more efficient to do step 3, 2, 1. I'm still getting the same result, and then they'd be like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, no, that does not roll with me. So yeah, that he actually ended up offering me the job when I was like 16 to run to manage the racetrack. I ended up turning it down because I was like, I don't want to work for somebody else. But no, for at that young age, I've very much so realized like this is not for me. I can't work for somebody else, and it's because it comes down to me like efficiency. A lot of people, if you're working for
Mm-hmm.
them, they're like, "This is the way we do it," or "This is the process."
Mm-hmm.
If there's a more efficient way to do it, I want to do it that way. And I like the freedom that comes from being your own boss and owning your own
Mm-hmm.
business. I don't know how people do it the other way. I can say that much.
I'm sure there are probably going to be young people who are listening
hmm
who are going to be like, but how did he make the money? So where did you go from running the cotton candy stand to, I mean, being self-employed?
There was probably about 10 years of absolute misery. Yeah, I mean, there was, so after like the cell phone business got shut down, I bounced for literally like 10 or 12 years. It wasn't until like I was 26 where I actually started to get some momentum. I bounced all around, and I think that for me was the issue, is that I was always chasing the shiniest object, or if I could just start this business and make an extra couple $100 a month, like that would change everything for me. And I never got serious, even though I was working all the time. I never got serious and focused on one single business and one single product, one single niche. I never really focused on that stuff. So I bounced all around. I did web design. I talked about this yesterday in another interview where I started a Kindle publishing business. I took some program where the guy taught you how to like hire writers to for like $50 or whatever, this was Elance back in the day, to write the book, and then you chose certain keywords and got a cover made, and you never actually did the writing yourself, but you could push out like a book every day and sell them for like $3 a copy. And I was like, that's gonna be it. never made much money. I mean, maybe a couple $100 a month. But for me, there was always the background of I was fascinated with the idea of marketing. I started my first business when like Google Ads was just starting.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of just like shook my world. I read a couple good books at the time. I don't remember any of them, but it just all hit me that like, man, this like whole digital marketing thing is just the most fascinating thing ever. So there was always that background of, always doing some kind of like digital agency work. And, I had 12 years of suffering and misery. And then eventually I finally got it to click. Yeah. So it was a lot of
Oh my
badness
goodness.
for a long time.
Uh, do you have any advice for any young listeners who are like, I want to skip those 12 bad years?
The advice would be, I would say two main things. The first is focus just on one business. If you have to have a job to pay bills or whatever, like that's fine. But then only do one business. If you have the luxury where you don't have to work a job, only do one business. Like just focus on one business and try to focus in as much as you possibly can. I'm going to give three things of advice. Second is
Keep going.
fail fast. Like you want to move as fast as possible. You're going to break things. Your first version of your product, your service, the first podcast you do, the first video you put out, it is all going to be terrible. And that's okay, because you're never going to get to that improvement to your second version and your third version and continuously improve until you actually put out the first version. So your product, your service, whatever it is, get it out as fast as you possibly can. That's advice number two. Advice number three would probably be, I like to say, be lean, mean, and scrappy. So, I talked about focusing, ruthlessly cut everything unnecessary. When I decided, I like telling this story, when I decided to just focus on my digital agency, it wasn't a digital agency. It was, I was kind of like an independent contractor. I would just build websites for people, or you needed a banner design. I was your guy. You needed a PowerPoint built. I was your guy. Like any of this like digital agency work. When I decided to do that, I was like, okay, I guess I need to get a website up, and then I need a name, and then I need a logo. And then because I got input from mentors, I was just like, no, I don't need any of those things. So I just ruthlessly moved forward at the leanest, meanest, scrappiest version of the business that it could be. And I mean, I had a 7-figure agency and I didn't even have a website until earlier this year. And the only reason I set up the website is because I have my training program, and I kind of needed to reference people back to that. That was it. That was the only reason. That would be my quick 3 pointers.
So when you decided to go scrappy, how long did it take you to go from like, I just need momentum, I need to just push through, and, doesn't have to be perfect, to the 7-figure? Because I'm sure people are like, tell me more about that part.
Sure. So it was a conversation that I had. Why I decided to just focus on the digital agency was I had a conversation with a long-term mentor of mine. This is probably October, November 2016, give or take. And my goal was just, man, if I could get to 6 figures, like just 6 figures, baby. Like if I could get there, I could actually like travel and like go on a vacation. Like prior to that, like I didn't even know what a vacation was. And, so let's call it October. By March, I hit 1923 was my average per week. It's weird. When I do my bookkeeping, I don't try to trick myself. So this is getting really technical here. I apologize, but I don't try to trick myself and to hit 6 figures in a year, you just have to hit $1,923 in a week, right? Well, if all of a sudden I get a check from a client for $2,000 one week, I'm not like, hey, I hit 6 figures, because what if the next 5 weeks I don't get any checks?
Mm-hmm.
So
you have to have an average.
Yeah. So for me at the time, I kept a spreadsheet that was like, how much revenue did I do each week? And I had my trailing 23-week average. because I'm obsessed with the number 23. That's it. And it's almost half a year. So it worked for me. And it was about March of 2017. So 6 months later that I hit that 1923 average. 2017.
I'm curious.
Oh, go ahead.
If you have, I'm just curious if you have that number 1923. Do you have the $1 million number? How much do you have to earn?
I think it's 19,230. I don't have that spreadsheet anymore. I eventually got to the point where I'm like, okay, I changed my goals. But at the time, it was just like, dude, I just want to hit 6 figures. And I think 2017, we might have done like maybe 300, 400, maybe a little bit more than that. But 2018, we did 7 figures. So
wow, that's awesome.
But for me going back, I talked about like setting up the logo and the website and everything like that. I was just, there were so many projects that I was working on where it was like, you have to, get it perfect. That first version, I was so obsessed with it being perfect that like so many projects I was working on never even got that first version out. There was one of the things I was working on was like a job board. I don't know why. It was just an idea I had. And it was like this job board where like each individual city, there would be like, I don't even remember what the name was, like jobspittsburgh.com, jobsorlando.com. Again, I have no idea why that was my genius idea. But I worked on that for like 5 years and it never even launched because I was always like, I got to build the perfect website and there's got to be the perfect logo and all these different things. And dude, I'm telling you, none of that matters. Don't do it. Just get the first version out yesterday.
Even to get this podcast rolling, I was spinning my wheels I had the idea for well over a year. And then in June, I decided I wanted to have this podcast like now, like in 2 weeks. And 4 months later, I finally was able to publish my first episode. And looking back, I wish I would have just done it in June. I didn't have to have all these things in place. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not, this is not going to be the core of my business. This is a way for me to, make connections and, basically provide people's stories, so that people don't feel alone when they're working from home. But yeah, everything, I listen to a lady, Grace Lever, and she always says, just massive imperfect action. Just go.
I love that. That's good.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. And even though I know that, and it's like my mantra in my head, it's still hard to implement and like live it in real life.
Yeah. I'm always battling it because I'm a perfectionist. So that is, I would say, my biggest flaw because it has held me back so much in my life being a perfectionist. I'm constantly battling it. It's not like I've gotten over it. I just learned the lesson and I can reference that and be like, okay, stop because you're being an idiot. Look at what you did before. Just don't be a perfectionist.
So when you were working and building this business from your 6 to 7 figure and you barely even knew what a vacation was, at what point did you feel like you had we didn't talk about how many hours you were working to get to that point. I'd like to hear about how many hours you were working and are working now. And then what is your vacation life like now? Got it.
Well, right. I'll answer that last one first. Right now, the vacation life sucks because I can't go anywhere.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been out of the country in over a year. This year, I've only gone, I live in Orlando and I have family in Pennsylvania. I think I've gone up there 2 or 3 times. And then once I went to Colorado just to hike in the mountains. And I'm trying to be safe. Obviously we can still travel in the United States, and trying to be as safe as possible. I got elderly parents. Right. If they ever hear that, they're going to be angry. They're like in their 60s. They're like, we're not elderly. So I got parents, I got people around me who are in that kind of danger zone with COVID. So I try to be as safe as possible. So as far as hours, going back, I never really tracked the number of hours I work. I think, a lot, a lot. Like that's all I did was work, to build the business and to get it going. But there's a lot of, what's the saying? Like you never if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life or something like that. There's a lot of truth to that. Like I love, especially now, I love what I do. It never feels like work. I'm passionate to get in here and, and grind away. But now I have the flexibility and the freedom where, we were talking before the show where, my girlfriend's like, hey, there's this like fun thing you want to do, it's 2 hours away, tomorrow. I know tomorrow's Saturday, but, some random day, it's like, yeah, sure, let's just go do it. And I don't have that obligation. I think for me, if you don't work in life, life's going to be boring. You have to have something you're passionate about, some project you're working on. Doesn't necessarily have to do with money, just something you're working on. And the freedom for me now, I have the freedom to work on when I want, on what I want, where I want, kind of where I want. Now the world's a little bit different, but prior to COVID, it was where I want. Does that answer that?
What about clients? Like, do they dictate when you have deadlines and things? Like, do you have to meet their needs and just push to the end until you're done? Or
so I have the work we do now is digital ad management. So we're basically managing ads for Facebook and Google ads. This is the sum of it for our clients. So sometimes we will do a website, like if their website's terrible and we need to redo that. So sometimes we will do that. But I never really have any kind of deadlines or anything like that. Plus I've gotten to the point where I focused on operations for a while. And now I have an incredible team in place where if the business, we were talking before the show about like the 4-hour work week lifestyle. If my business requires, the agency requires, 3 hours, 2 hours of work a week, that's probably putting it pretty high. I still every day, like kind of my morning routine is, I get on and I check everything like in my first hour while I'm drinking my green juice, which we talked about before the show. And
show us the green juice.
Hey, you know what? I will advertise my green juice. My girlfriend made this. Thank you. Thank you, baby. It's, so she uses not one of the fast moving ones. It's one of the ones that just grinds up the fruits and vegetables. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I don't think I have that one.
Oh, man, she's going to yell at me when she knows that I didn't know what it was called.
It's not like a Ninja?
No, it's not. Maybe. I don't know. Don't ask me. You know what? I didn't make it.
I just use an old blend. Well, a blender that my mom gave me.
Yeah, so this is not made in a blender, but it's, apples and celery, green, kale, spinach, ginger. Absolutely delicious. Absolutely love it. So, but
man, we might need to get that recipe.
Yes, it is so good. And it's got everything you need in it. And, but for me, I wake up, I have, I could talk about my morning routine if you wanted to, but
go for it. We'll get back to the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you set the standard here and what you want to talk about. But
tell us about the juice.
So I wake up.
End of routine.
And I actually think this is important, especially for people that are working at home. It's not a hot topic. It's nobody's like, ooh, what's your morning routine? Nobody loves to talk about it. But I do believe, especially if you work from home, that the first and last hour of your day define your life. Like if you're getting up and like immediately rushing to your laptop and like, I got to check my emails, like you're going to be miserable. Like if you're not getting up and like, getting ready for your day, you're going to be miserable. So, for me, I get up, I have like a stretching kind of yoga routine I do. Gonna get my body warmed up, have my coffee, have a protein shake, get a shower, do some meditation. And then I hit the desk and start working. That first hour is just clearing any emails, putting out any potential fires or anything, checking up with the team. I'm really making it sound like a lot of work, but it's not. My goal is by 9:00, I'm done with any kind of obligation work. So if I wanted to for the rest of the day, I could just do whatever I want, which I do.
Wow.
But if I wanted to,
how early do you wake up to be done?
7:00.
By
7:00. Yeah. So I get up 7. Takes me like an hour to get ready, and then while I'm sitting here working, My girlfriend would bring me the green juice,
Oh.
and yeah, bust it out. And then beyond that, typically go to the gym or go for I'm into cycling, so go for a ride, and then work on projects that I want to work on, projects that I'm passionate about. So
Mm-hmm. So if you only needed to do 1 or 2 hours a day or 1 or 2 hours a week for your agency, how many days are you working? Or how many days a week are you working and how many hours a day are you working on your special projects that you're interested in?
now with COVID, now it's like it's really bad. I mean, it's probably every day I'm working because there's really not much else to do. I mean, we spend a lot of time with my girlfriend and our dogs, but there's really not much to do.
Yeah.
I play hockey. Can't really go play hockey because the rink I go to is closed for construction. So hopefully in 1 month, actually it's 1 month today, they open back up, and I'm looking forward to that. But 60 hours a week. But it comes down to it's what I want when I want. So
Mm-hmm.
I struggle to give you that number because I love every minute of it.
So you don't have to work 60 hours a week. You're
No,
choosing to because it's the stuff that you enjoy.
absolutely. I think that is the most important part is when people, especially if you like right now, if you go to a 9 to 5 job or you work for a company, even if you do work from home, most people, when they hear that word work, it's misery. It's bad. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
so excited to work. And it's not like something's wrong with you. It's probably because you have a job that you don't like. You're not
Yeah.
passionate about it. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you lazy.
You're there for the paycheck.
You're there for the paycheck. That is so true. And that's why you hate the term work.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot there's a lot of truth in that.
You can unpack that further. I had all these things like flashing through my head, and now I'm trying to like figure out which one I wanted to say first. I had an opportunity, and I've talked about this before, and like when I've done my own story, but I had an opportunity when I left a job that was I was good at it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a desk job that I never wanted. I didn't like search out to be that. I was doing medical transcription. I
Oh,
was good at it. I had benefits, and there are things that come like when your husband is putting himself through grad school. Someone's got to carry the health insurance and pay the bills.
yeah.
So I did that. Well, when they basically offered me the opportunity to leave, like it wasn't like I was fired or laid off, but they were like, "Hey, we need to downsize. Who wants to volunteer to go first?" I I had already found something that was way, 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 way more fun for me
Mm-hmm.
and followed that. I had to work more hours. I had been working 33 hours a week for the previous job, and now I have to work, 40 or more to replace that income at least. But it was fun. I didn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So keep going. I have something else I want to say as soon as I can find it again.
No, I think that's actually how I got into my education company was I ended up, over the years with the agency and being like in that kind of marketing space, I would end up meeting people at, conferences or industry events or whatever. And I was, at the time working from home was a little bit more of a, novelty than what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would meet people and they would just be like, they were miserable with their jobs, and they were like, I want to do what you do. Like I've tried talking to my boss, and they won't let me work from home. Yeah, I hate
Mm-hmm.
my commute. I hate all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's how I started getting into mentoring and coaching and whatnot. Was just meeting people who hated their jobs and wanted to kind of do their own thing when they want, whenever they want on what they wanted to, not be a slave to a desk. And I would also argue, I think we talked about this a little bit before the show, where I think the definition of work as itself has been changing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes each year more and more people are working from home or starting their own businesses because it's a lot easier now to do that from home. And with COVID, it just ratcheted that up to 100, where now the stigma, which we talked about that before the show, is completely gone, because it had to be gone. You go back a year and everybody was, they kind of view people that work from home as like, they're not that serious. They're not, they don't have a real job. And now it's like everybody has to work from home, and they're like, oh, I guess those people actually were working.
Yeah. Right. There are so many different ways that you can work from home, though. Like, I think I had an interview earlier this week where it was, I think people thought that since I worked from home that I had time flexibility and that I could work from anywhere and go to like a coffee shop with a laptop. And I was definitely in like a organization that required me to be hardwired to my, with an Ethernet cord to my router, and I wasn't allowed to bring it anywhere else. So I always want to kind of clarify, like, are you an entrepreneur? Are you a small business owner? Are you a work from anywhere? Or, are you an employee of an organization that's requiring you to, basically clock in and clock out?
Yeah. No, I forget who I talked to somebody recently who had something like they were able to work from home, but the company they worked for like logged their keystrokes, and they had to hit a certain number of keystrokes per hour. This is the face I was making. I was like, what is that? What is wrong with those people?
Oh yeah. Very
micromanaging. Yeah. I mean,
my company did that. Like they could measure, like we used a foot pedal for the transcriptions because it was kind of like the play button, and you could lift it and rewind with your foot. So that you wouldn't have to take your fingers off.
That's actually pretty cool.
The keyboard. It is, except for they could tell, like, how long have you pushed it? What percentage of your day have you been pushing it? How long did you let go? Like, how many, and they can see, like, what apps have you, or what screens have you had up on your screen? And, like, have you been spending too much time in the messenger versus, like, into the, place where we were putting our documents? Mm-hmm. And, like, you always had that feeling, like, even though you're sitting in your home office, that basically someone's looking over your shoulder, like, the whole day.
I can't even... I have a team of...
And, like, some people love it. Like, that's what they trained to do, and they feel proud, and they know that they're helping an organization. Because we were doing, like, emergency notes. And sometimes, like, you're basically putting the record in there so that the doctor can do surgery. So, like, there's definitely a certain amount of satisfaction of doing your job well. Mm-hmm. But when I had the opportunity to change, I was like, yeah,
get away from that.
I'm ready.
Wow. That's so... I mean, I have a team of... It depends on, what all is going on with the business, 6 or 7 people.
Mm-hmm.
I literally sometimes forget their names because when I bring somebody on, when I bring a team member on, I tell them, like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, if you need me at any time, Skype me, send me an email, call me if there's an emergency. I'm available to you. If you need to talk about anything, you just want to chat and you're lonely. I'm there for you, but my ideal situation with my team members is to put them in a position where they can do their jobs. They don't feel like I'm looking over their shoulder, empower them to do their jobs right, and trust that they're going to do it. And I mean, sometimes you have to like look at metrics and just get a feel for, is this person doing their job? But I've never had somebody, at least in my personal opinion, maybe I've just been lucky to make the right hires. I've never had somebody where I was like, oh, I need to start logging their keystrokes. It's empower people to make the right decision and do the work, and they probably will.
Mm-hmm. I talked with someone earlier this week as well. It probably, when this episode goes live, it probably would have been like from last week, Jonas. And he is a workologist, and he was talking about how that's kind of like how the work is changing. And as companies are learning that they don't have to have such a short leash on their employees, the more that they trust their employees. Now, some people, of course, are going to be an exception to the rule and try to get by with the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. But, the more you can trust people to get their job done, oftentimes they'll do it. Like, their work is the proof of, how productive they are.
Absolutely.
Or efficient.
Yeah. And I think I am okay with somebody on my team figuring out a more efficient or better way to do something. I talked to somebody, this was back before COVID. They owned an agency as well, and they had somebody who, I think they'd focus more on web design, and he found out like he had a designer or whatever who would come up with the concepts for the website. Wasn't actually building the website, just the graphics or whatever. And he somehow found out that the employee wasn't actually, they were no longer actually doing the work themselves. Like he was paying them to do the work themselves. They were outsourcing it. So the person would basically just wasn't even, they weren't even working. They were, just delivering somebody else's work, and that person was getting paid less, like say a quarter of what they were getting paid. And I was like, did you notice the work go down in quality? He's like, no, I mean, it was still good work. That was the problem. I'm like, so what are you complaining about? What does it matter if the person is still delivering good quality stuff? In that particular case, it's a design. What does it matter if it's somebody else, if they're subbing it out? It doesn't matter. Now, if the quality drops, there's a lot to say about that. But if the quality stays the same or even goes up, who cares? He ended up firing that person.
And in some industries that works. Oh, he fired him?
Yeah, he got rid of the guy because he didn't feel like he could trust them, I guess. Oh. Which there is something to say about that, But like when I bring somebody on, I tell them stuff like that. I'm like, I want you to figure out the most efficient way to do your job. So, you get paid by the hour, but if you find a more efficient way, I don't want you to feel like I have to log in, during a certain time period or whatever. I'll increase your pay. It's just like, get this job done. If it needs to be 1 hour a day instead of 10 hours a day, and you can figure out a way to do it that much more efficient and deliver the same results, then do it. All I care about is that the work gets done at the end of the day.
That's pretty amazing. I'm thinking of like, there could be a few places, like maybe some industries that would work better in than others. Like, again, I was in the medical industry, so like confidentiality was a big deal. And I know someone right now who is transcribing medical not interviews. They're confidential interviews, and she can't outsource it because, there's that. You can't breach that. But yeah, I can see that being something. We were talking about work being something that you enjoy, and so you don't really mind doing the 60-hour thing. And this is what I was forgetting that I was going to say earlier. So my kids are really into Minecraft. I have a 8-year-old and I have a 5-year-old who's into it now too. 5, 8, and 9. And on the weekend, like if they had all of their jobs done or their room was clean and their homework had been, done for the week, they just want to play Minecraft like all weekend. I'm getting a tickle here. They just want to play Minecraft all week or all weekend. And they're always like, Mom, do you want us to teach you how to play? And they have other games too. Yeah. We got a Switch last year for Christmas, I think. But they're like, Mom, we can teach you this is how you do the controllers. And my son is like drawing me a diagram. And I'm like, thanks, honey. But actually, I'm really interested in what I can see you building your stuff and I'll watch you. But I'm really interested in what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is I'm researching, how to have a podcast. And even though it's technically work, it's basically my hobby also.
Yeah. And
so I'm filling my time with something that I enjoy. It's not drudgery to me. I could be I could take over the TV and,
play Minecraft.
I'm like, do you really want me to take your turn? But like, I'm with the family. Like, this is just when I'm like hanging out on the couch in the living room and everyone's there. I might just be like reading transcripts from someone else's podcast or, I don't know, just something. And to me, it's still enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I can't imagine. And it doesn't feel like work, probably. It's you're passionate about it. And yeah, doing it any other way, I couldn't imagine. Could not imagine, for sure.
Let's talk about equipment for a minute. I think that we maybe like left a few threads of this conversation like loose somewhere, but let's talk about equipment. You told me that you love your AirPods. I said it.
Yes,
I was going to say earpods again.
Yeah.
What did you have before?
Before these, I had the Bose, not Bose, Beats, like kind of the ones on a string. I don't know what they were called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had those. I think more important. So first off, the AirPods. These are the AirPods Pro or something like that. I'm not very much. So it has the noise canceling, which is just life changing. I have that, and probably the other piece of equipment would be Of course, my Mac. I gotta mention that. Like, if you're on PC, what is wrong with you? Uh,
I'm with you. I mean, like I had to learn both when I was in college. I
mhm.
had to be um my very first semester of college, I had to learn how to use a Mac and a PC at the same time. Because apparently where I grew up, we just had like this old dinosaur of a computer that I don't even know what it was, but it wasn't a Mac. And so I had to learn both, and I had to learn like the menus and the mouse
It's different.
keystroke or
Yeah.
the shortcuts and stuff like that at the same time. So
Hmm.
I've always been versatile in both, but if I can buy my own, I'm always going to go with Apple.
I grew up on PC, and then when I was like 20 or 21 or something like that, I got my first Mac. I never gone back. It's
Are you on a laptop, or are you on like a iMac right now?
so I have a Mac Mini, which is
Yes,
mounted to
the
the
little square.
yes, which is mounted to the bottom of my desk,
Uh huh.
and then I have the LG 4K Ultra something monitor. Uh,
How big is it?
27 or something inches. Uh,
Nice.
that's the reason I did the Mac Mini is that I also have my MacBook Pro, so
Hmm.
that I kind of have redundancy because
Yeah.
sometimes prior to COVID, I would travel in sometimes sketchy places, and if somebody,
Mm.
everything is in the cloud. But if somebody were to
Yeah.
steal my Mac, I mean, like that would like rock my world. So I just I don't know. I always think of like that redundancy. So there a lot of things would need to go bad for me to lose my data and everything like that. So I have
Right.
the Mac Mini, which I mean when I was surprised by I think I got like 64 gigs of RAM. Like it's ridiculous, and it was cheaper
Hmm.
than the MacBook Pro. So
Yeah, I've looked at that option because I'm using my MacBook Pro.
mhm.
And I mean, it's not a great monitor. I think my husband used it for a little while, and he's like, yeah, it was our TV that we were using as a monitor for a while. It's small, a small TV. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to decide when I don't have a backup computer. That's the thing. Like you're talking redundancy in case someone steals it. I'm thinking if it crashes, I just need to be able to log back in. I'm still doing some of this online teaching,
Yeah.
and they expect me to be there when I say I'm going to be.
Yeah, that's another reason why I have two is so if something goes bad, I got a backup.
Hmm.
The other piece of
Do you
equipment,
have do you have the Pro as a monitor also, or do you just use the one monitor?
no, I just use the one monitor. My pros, actually, I don't even know where it's at.
Just over there somewhere.
It's
Okay.
it's sitting somewhere behind me. But no, I never use that unless I'm leaving the office, to
Okay.
go do something. The other thing we talked about prior to the show is I have a fully standing desk. That's the brand,
Yes.
Fully. F-U.
Fully, because
Yeah.
my last interview also has one, and it's bamboo.
Yes, it is incredible. They're not cheap by all means, but it is sturdy, uh, flawlessly works. Absolutely love it. Right now I'm sitting because, if I did a couple interviews where I was standing and I found like I move around. So like my voice would like be back here. So I was like, okay, I got to sit for interviews. But no, I absolutely love the standing desk because it's really unhealthy to sit for so long, and I find that I think clear if I'm doing some kind of creative work, writing something or coming up with a lesson. Standing and busting it out is a lot better than sitting and just my legs aching.
I learned it the hard way. With the pandemic, we've been home, and I was doing a lot of like the Zoom stuff. And people talk about Zoom fatigue. We've talked about this a few times in previous episodes. But what happened to me is I attended a 3-day summit, and it was really good. I didn't expect to watch all 36 people talk for 3 days. I think I missed only 2. But toward the end, it was like my tailbone felt crooked. And I was started to like have headaches, and like my back felt weird. And I went to the chiropractor the next day. I'm like calling. I'm like, please let me in. And he's like, did you sit a lot this week? And I was like, yeah, I was attending a summit. And he's like, your SI joint or whatever. I don't know what he called it. But basically my hips were like getting all
Mm-hmm.
wonky from literally sitting so much. He's like, you gotta move and walk. And I mean, I didn't think that sitting for 3 days was a big deal. But if you do that every week,
Do you get up like how? like if you sit, how long nonstop are you sitting?
Apparently, I was doing it a lot because, like, for a while I was teaching 10 hours and I would sit the whole time. I
Oh.
can stand here. I don't have a fancy desk, but it's manual. I can lift up the keyboard tray, and then I just have like a couple boxes I can put my MacBook up on.
That
So
works.
I can stand. You know, I've got a map behind me, and
Like me.
I actually got like um, it's on a photographer stand, and so it goes all the way to the top of the ceiling if I want it to. So I did that on purpose. Actually, usually if I'm sitting, it's a problem because the bottom of the map shows because I intended to be able to stand up more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Now that my chiropractor has had a few words with me about, you know, these habits of mine, I'm actually going over to my husband's desk, like when he's not at it, because a lot of times I'm working into the evening. Like I'll be with the kids all day while they're at school, helping them get their assignments and get logged in and all those things while my husband's doing his day job from home currently. And then I'll kind of like sneak over and use his desk a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, just don't leave your stuff on it. He doesn't want to come back to his desk like all cluttered because we have different habits, let's just say.
I would say two things on the sitting and whatnot. First is I use an app called Howler Timer, like a wolf howling. There is a paid version. I think I just have the free version.
Yeah.
And what it does, it's just like a timer, obviously, but you can set it and then it counts down and then this wolf howls. That's what it does. But I'll set it for an hour, and when it howls, I get up. Like if I'm in the middle of like, typing an email,
a podcast interview.
Well, yeah, like right now I don't have it running, but yeah, if I'm not in the middle of something like that, I will get up and go get some water or do some stretching or something like that. Like every hour, if I am sitting, I will use that app religiously. The other thing is buy a really good chair. Like I have one of is it Herman Miller Aeron chairs? I probably just really butchered that.
We'll need to get the link for that so that I can
have that. Yeah, you know what? We're going to put that in the show notes.
I'm using a really nice chair that's probably like 30 years old. It was really nice 20 or 30 years ago.
Hey, whenever I told the story of talking to that mentor in 2016, I went downstairs that night in my freezing basement office, and I did not have a chair. I sat on a bucket of drywall compound. That was what I sat on.
Did you put like a pad on it?
No, I didn't have one. Like it was painful. It sucked. It was terrible. But that's where I was. So you don't buy the $1,000 Aeron chair. I really hope it's called an Aeron chair. I'm going to make a fool out of myself. But yeah, you don't buy that right away. No, you suffer through the bucket until you can.
Bucket. So. Wow, was that in your parents' basement?
The house that I lived in at that time, I bought my parents' house. So it's a long story, but when I was 19, might have been 18, 19, I bought my first house, and then several years later, so it was in Florida. I'm condensing I'm trying to make this a short story.
I'm really interested in the story, so just tell me as much as you want.
So yeah, I ended up buying my house when I was my first house when I was 19. I'm from Pennsylvania. Moved to Florida when I was 19, and
so your parents were back in Pennsylvania.
Not now. So
they were at the time.
Yeah. So no, they moved down too. They moved.
Okay.
They moved down to Florida as well, like at the same time. So 5 or so years later, my parents are starting to get old. Like they have all kinds of health issues. They have this, big house in Pennsylvania. It's old. The property taxes are just stupid. And I at the time, my girlfriend was like, hey, we should be closer to family up in Pennsylvania. So we were like, okay, well, I came to them the idea. I was like, I know you guys are trying to get out of that house. I can't really afford it, but I'll buy that house from you and you buy my house from me. That's basically what happened. Yep.
Did you guys switch the Orlando, Pennsylvania location?
At the time, I didn't live in Orlando. I lived in on the beach area in a town called Melbourne, Florida.
Okay.
But literally, like, I packed up a massive Penske truck, drove that truck to Pennsylvania, unloaded my stuff and loaded their stuff and drove it back down. And
Oh
then
my
unloaded their
goodness.
stuff and then got my car and drove out. There's a lot of driving that week.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's and it was an
And a
old
lot of packing
house.
and unpacking.
Yeah, it was an old house. It was little to no insulation. It was freezing in the basement. There was no heat in the basement, so it was
I'm curious
brutal.
what city that was in.
The old house in Pennsylvania, a
Yeah.
small little farming town called Somerset.
So my husband actually went to college in I think it was Lakeland
Lakeland, Florida?
near Orlando.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like
And then
southwest.
after that, he and a bunch of friends moved to Pennsylvania, but they lived closer to like the Oil City area. So when you're talking about houses, big old houses, there's some big old like I think oil houses.
Oh.
Yeah, there's some big houses back there.
Is that eastern Pennsylvania?
Western, not too far. I think it's north of Pittsburgh.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, Oil City, Oil City,
Like oil.
oil. And then it dried
Kind
up,
of
and then
sounds
everyone
familiar. Oh,
left,
that makes sense.
and they left all these like huge, like I guess I would call them mansions, like just huge, ridiculous houses that ended up just kind of like becoming like decayed because no one was living in them, and like they were just selling them for like a few $10,000, like
Oof.
maybe 40 grand. You could like buy literally like this freaking amazing old house that you'd have to fix up.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that big. It was like 4,000 square feet, but
That's still big.
the property
So then
taxes
you
were
guys
expensive and it was
switched locations.
yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's how I ended up back there, and now I'm back and actually what happened was I moved there in 2015, renovated the house and fixed it all up, and then this is the first time I've actually talked about this on a podcast. And in last year, November 12th, last year, me and my girlfriend, we took our two dogs, got in an RV. We realized traveling became a big part of our lives. And we realized like, we've never actually kind of seen our own country a lot. So bought a motorhome and, because I can do that and I can still work. And we're driving west. We left in October and we're just heading west and with no real aim. And on November 12th, our house burnt down in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Wait, what day did you leave?
October 21st. I know the dates because obviously it was like a dramatic life event.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was.
So you were far away.
Yeah. Long story short, our dog got hurt in Arkansas. She like cut up her foot or whatever. So I mean, she's okay. But we ended up we couldn't move. Like the vet recommended, this was like 2 weeks into our trip or whatever. The vet recommended that we not move. Like we try to keep her stationary. And at the time it was starting to get cold. We were in Arkansas. We were going through like some parks or whatever, national park, or it wasn't national parks, state parks, whatever. And, it was starting to get cold. And we're like, well, we can't move really. So I'm like, we're driving south. So we ended up in Austin, Texas, for like 2 weeks, which I was so excited to, travel around Austin. And, I don't know, we were maybe there for a week or so. And then randomly, November 12th, the middle of the night, I get this call from, ADT security, and that was that. But luckily it ended up being, it was traumatic, terrible.
Could they salvage anything?
No, the whole house was, it was this 4,000 square foot brick.
And you had just renovated the whole thing?
I put a lot of money into it. I had done a lot of work myself. I actually liked to do it. It was kind of a hobby. We hadn't 100% finished all the renovations, and, but yeah, it was like our dream kind of project home. And, but luckily, to this day, I still say we're the lucky ones because, we just lost possessions. My dogs were with us. Nobody got hurt.
You probably brought your most important things with you in the RV.
I'm not really a possession thing. I'm not really, I don't really have any possessions. Like that mean a lot to me. You
had your laptop.
I had my laptop. I had some clothes. we took, we had like a little mini safe or whatever, so we didn't like lose the important documents or whatever.
Oh, wow.
It was just, like all your possessions. And so I go up there again. This is the first time I've ever publicly talked about this. So then, I go up for like a week to kind of just like handle everything and make sure everything's okay. Fly back to Austin, and it was like, dude, I don't want to continue with this trip anymore. Like, I kind of want to rebuild my life. And at the time, we were actually looking to, before the RV trip, we were looking to maybe buy like a condo or a smaller house in Florida, just to, kind of like a getaway or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're like, okay, we'll do the RV trip and maybe we'll buy something out west or something. So the fire happens, and I'm like, dude, I just want to rebuild my life. We can't take an RV back to Pennsylvania because they'll freeze. So I was like, well, we were talking about Florida. I guess we're heading to Florida. So
So you never went very far west. You got to Texas, and then you came back to Florida?
Yes. Yeah. We never, I mean, we had so many, ideas. It was like, oh, Grand Canyon, we're going to go through all this. And, yeah. So then we came back here, or came to Florida, rented a house, and then we were able to buy a new one. But once COVID's over, I'm gonna get another RV, and we're gonna finish that trip. So,
right, good gravy. That's an intense story. Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
publicly for the first time.
No, I think it's put a lot of things in perspective, because it happened in the middle of the night. So I mean, no, they weren't able to determine a cause. So, you don't know, was it smoldering or whatever, or was it, what if we had been there?
Right.
So I look at it and I'm blessed. I'm lucky. Nobody got hurt. My dogs are okay. My girlfriend's okay. Like, nobody. So we're the lucky ones. So
did your business change after that?
No, I mean, like, to this day, I haven't told anybody on my team because they didn't even know. It was just, I took.
You're like, we're just moving to Orlando now.
They don't even know that I moved. They don't even know. I actually don't think, I might have talked to one of them. I might have talked to one of them about, like, oh, I'm in Orlando because we were talking about COVID or something. And I'm like, yeah, it's really bad here in Orlando. Well, other than that, they don't even know. I think my background might have changed on Zoom calls. And they were like, oh, you got a nice office now. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, I just tell everybody everything. So I can't even imagine holding in a story like that for so long. So thank you.
Well, it's not holding it in. It's never kind of brought it up, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if people want to work with you or are curious more about what you do, now that we've heard all of this, how can we find you?
Sure. Well, if you're looking for, actually, we're not accepting any clients for Ogline Digital, but my agency website is oglinedigital.com. Probably going to be in the show notes. And then my personal website is dylanogline.com, just my name. And in there they can sign up for the waiting list to join my newest version of my agency program.
You were talking about like an educational thing. Is that the agency program?
Yeah. So it's there is an LLC, but it's ran under my personal name, dylanogline.com. The program, the newest version of the program is called Agency 2.0. My goal is to be able to take, anybody, a soccer, I use the example of soccer mom, or you mentioned, somebody who's younger, who's in college or whatever, or somebody who's just got unemployed, knows nothing about digital marketing, knows nothing about starting their own business. They're like, I hate my job, whatever. My goal is to be able to take that person, and by the end of the program, they have everything in place, everything they need to build a 6-figure digital agency. That is the goal.
And whereabouts is this going to be, like 2021, or when will you possibly be opening those doors again?
So we haven't talked about my education journey, but that's fine. But right now, Agency 2.0, my goal is to kind of get that out by the end of the year.
Okay.
It's my third version of an agency program. I already have students in my previous versions. But I've kind of been learning, I talked about minimal viable product and things like that, and just getting things out there into the marketplace. That was my previous versions of the program. programs, I should say.
Got it. Well, goodness. Thank you so much, Dylan. I've really enjoyed this chat. I told we talked about it ahead of time. He's like, "So how long are your podcasts,
Oh
generally
wow,
running?"
we've
And I was
gone a
like, "Well, it's
while.
supposed to be 45 minutes, but lately the trend has been we blew past that hour further than we have in the past. So setting new records here.
I talk a lot. That happens all the time with me. I apologize.
I love it.
So,
It's like if you get into a groove, definitely just run with it. It doesn't have to be awkward or painful. So, all right. Well, let's say goodbyes. And do you have any final words you'd like to share? Like, what advice would you give to people who are just getting started in working from home or who are looking to maybe change their situation?
my final words of advice. I'll finish with this kind of in that direction. For me, it's not about just necessarily working from home. It's about time freedom.
Yeah.
Prior to COVID, traveling was just a massive, massive factor to me. I gave an interview recently where this was a print interview, and they asked me a question like this. And I had a younger guy I was mentoring. This is probably about, I don't know, 2 years ago now. I don't know. I lose track of time. And he wants, he works, he's like 18, 19 years old, and he works like a dead end job at like fast food. Like, hates his job, absolutely hates it. And he's like seen my lifestyle or whatever. And he's like, man, I would love to have that. I would love to be able to travel the world. I don't, he's from a small town. He's like, I actually want to get out into the world. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, is it as cool as it seems or whatever? And I'm like, you know what, man, to tell you the truth, it's not, however cool you imagine it'll be to be standing, to have the freedom to, you're standing there looking out at a city and you have a month, 2 months, an unlimited amount of time to explore it and do what you want. The vision you have right now of how cool and how amazing and how life-changing that is so, so, so far wrong. You have no idea just how amazing it is. No matter how high your expectations are, they are not high enough to actually how amazing it is. So of course that has to do with the traveling and being able to go and see the world and whatnot. But I think a lot of working from home is similar to like that kind of freedom. And to me that freedom, however, if you are not now already working from home and have your own business or can work whenever you want on whatever you want, if your goal is that and you have this expectation in your head, your expectation is way too low, no matter how high your expectation is. It is absolutely incredible how good, how amazing and freeing it feels. As cliched as that sounds.
No, I love it. I haven't experienced that lifestyle because I have worked, hourly jobs mm-hmm. and, kind of been bound to my home office and, we have kids.
Yeah.
So we don't, they have school. We could take them out and homeschool, and maybe this year that will happen based on how things are going with the pandemic. But
who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But it is interesting to think about that. Like that's the kind of a shift that I'm making more towards, those freedoms. I'm hoping.
Yeah, you'll get there. As far as the family, I know that was supposed to be the last question. There is Do you have you read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
If you follow his blog or something like that, there is some, I'm butchering the story. There's some guy who, it's like one of his case studies, like a 4 Hour Work Week case study. And it's this mm-hmm. family of like 5 or 6. And the guy created his own, digital business or whatever. It was on an agency. I think it had like to do with music education or something like that. And him and his like 5 kids, or probably 3 or 4 kids, their whole family, they travel around the world. They're all homeschooled. He's spending a ton of time with his kids. I don't have any kids yet, but like to me, that's the goal, is to be able to show your kids the world and, have this certain curiosity that goes into your life instead of this dread of getting up every day and doing the same thing. curiosity is a very good fuel for the soul.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. Well, let's call it. I could keep going. I could.
may as well. Maybe another episode.
I have more questions. Maybe we'll have to do part 2 another time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So.
Well, thank you, Dylan. This is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home with Dylan Ogline.
You got it.
Did I get it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Take
Thanks
care.
for having me. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.